Welcome back to SuperWest on Sundays, everybody. I'm joined as always by our assistant editor and Dane Miller. I'm also joined by fellow senior writer and Stephen Vilardo. I'm a senior writer myself here for SuperWest Sports, and the three of us make up SuperWest on Sundays. So we've been doing some roster breakdowns, some team previews. We've been hopping all over the country, talking to people outside, inside, blah, blah, blah. We are back here today talking college football. The games are back. So, Dane and Steve, you guys want to say a quick hello?
It's good to have football back. That's about it. Ready to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Good
Week one
season.
was a good one.
Yeah, definitely some pretty captivating games. I think the first game on our docket here, I know, Dane, you spent a little time watching this one. I believe it was on Thursday night. But yeah, you want to just give us your kind of thoughts on the Colorado North Dakota State matchup?
Yeah, I think Colorado's offensive line has improved, which is the biggest key for their season. Last year, the offensive line had a lot of issues, which caused problems, and so the fact that they got some improvement up front, I don't think it's that much better, but it's a little bit better. It's reasonably better is the term I've been describing it. So it's not the greatest offensive line, but the fact that it's improved is going to make Colorado a better team. Whether or not they get to 6 wins, I think remains to be seen, but that's probably about the ceiling for me. I don't think they're going to win many more than 6 if they do. And it's going to be basically a struggle each game because the defense is not very good. I think now that the offensive line has been fixed up a little bit, the defensive issues are the ones that are really, coming to the forefront of the problems at Colorado. And so until they get some better defense, it's going to be close games like they had against North Dakota State. It's a fun game. I mean, Travis Hunter went off. Shadur Sanders was making plays. There's big hits. It was a great first game of the year. It was really entertaining, and so I'm looking forward to watching Colorado play more. And I think they can get to 6 wins.
And you talked about the offensive line, and I think they only had 59 yards rushing and just like 2.3 yards per rush, or 2.6, something like that. I think they're only had one run above 10 yards, and it was an 11 yarder. So yeah, the line needs to improve for sure. Obviously, North Dakota State's a very good FCS team, but you would think that a Power Four conference team would be able to run the ball a little bit better against an FCS program. So that line definitely needs to get improved.
What did you think needed was kind of the main problem with Colorado's defense?
Well, I felt like they couldn't get off the field. The time of possession difference between Colorado and North Dakota State was pretty dramatic. I feel like North Dakota State would hold the ball and go on really long drives, and Colorado couldn't get off the field. North Dakota State does a kind of a run-based offense. They don't really pass as much. It's kind of a power running, sort of like an old school style, and they would just get chunk plays on the ground, 4 or 5 yards per rush. And so when they were able to do that, they would just get first downs. And Colorado could never get off the field because of that. So, it might be a defensive line issue. It might be a linebacker issue. Maybe it was just the scheme that they were going up against. North Dakota State runs good stuff. I mean, there's a reason they're one of the best teams in the FCS. But yeah, they just could not get off the field. I think they got to improve their run defense.
Steve, you wanted to touch on the Oregon and Idaho?
Yeah, I mean, a 7 point game for 7 point. What it was, a 10 point win, I guess. Whatever it was. It was a tight game pretty much the entire way for the Ducks and Idaho. It ended up being a 24-14 win for Oregon. And obviously the second, third best team in the country should be putting away an FCS team a lot more convincingly than that. But when you actually look at the numbers, I mean, obviously Dan Lanning, I don't think was real happy with the performance, but they had 487 yards total. I mean, Dylan Gabriel couldn't have been a whole lot better. I mean, 41 of 49, I think, throwing the ball for 380 yards. They were 4 for 4 in the red zone, so they didn't really have any issues there. They were on third downs. They were 7 of 16. Gabriel got sacked 3 times in some big spots, and they also, they did force 3 turnovers. So the third down conversions and the sacks were not good. But other than that, I mean, they limited to Idaho to 49 yards rushing, which is really good, and 217 for the game. So I don't think I think this is the week one overreaction from a lot of people. Just looking at that score, I don't think Oregon's got some big, huge problem they got to fix. I think they just got a few things here and there that they need to fix. But I mean, I think they held the ball for like 40 minutes of the game. Oregon did as well. So it was just, a couple of errors here and there. But I mean, it wasn't the 40-point win that you would have expected, but it was a pretty dominant performance in every aspect except for the scoreboard, which the scoreboard's all that matters. But the same token, I don't think there's any reason to push the panic button in Eugene just yet. I think they'll be fine.
Oh, I didn't watch a single snap of the game, and I don't think many people around the country did either. It's on the Big Ten network, and it was blacked out in half the Northwest, or the entire Northwest if you had Comcast, and there were a lot of other games on at the same time. So it was beneficial for the Ducks to be sort of tucked away and not on a network that a lot of people are watching on prime time. That really helped them. I think for the whole season, because of the expanded college football playoff, struggles early in the year don't really matter as much. There's going to be a lot of teams from the Big Ten that get into the playoff. So a game like this might have a greater impact, say, last season when you're in the Pac-12 and you're going to be fighting for, that Final Four spot in the playoffs. But with the expanded playoffs and being in the Big Ten now, it's one of those games that you just put behind you and move on.
Yeah, and again, as kind of Dane touched on, this isn't the game I watched. I was completely shocked when I looked at the score. The one thing I will say, looking at Oregon historically over the last 5 years, I just feel like they still don't have that like main whiteout. Tez Johnson is pretty good, and he's he's an Oregon player, so he's great. He's a top tier guy, but he's not the dude. He's not just a guy you can throw it to. Sorry if I butcher his name representing your school, but like he's not a Tetsu or McMillan. I know I said that wrong, but they haven't had that guy, and Idaho, for whatever reason, was able to hang around. I hear you guys. What I said about Colorado, I feel is fair. A win is a win in week one, so I'll give it to Oregon. They got the win. I think you got to grade everyone on that same line. But there's no reason in hell Oregon shouldn't have beaten Idaho by more than 20 points. As someone who used to live on the Pullman-Moscow highway, if you're familiar with the Palouse, you know exactly what that is, 8 miles from my alma mater. That's the facilities don't match. It's not even. It's like South Sudan versus USA basketball. You just got to do better.
To kind of comment on your receiving aspect of it, Tez Johnson obviously had a great game yesterday. I think he got 12 balls. Terrence Ferguson stepped up at the tight end spot, but then I think Oregon's really looking for Evan Stewart to get kind of some more action this year and help out there. And he was pretty quiet yesterday, and I think he had like 15 yards. So you're exactly right. They just need that second receiver to step up and take some pressure off Tez Johnson.
All of us picked UNLV, so were any of you shocked?
No, I think that's one thing I was wanting to highlight is that everybody at SuperWest Sports picked this upset correctly because we pay attention to the teams on the West Coast, and it was sort of obvious that UNLV had a good program based on what they did last year and the amount of talent that they returned on their roster. And Houston is just a bad football team. I mean, they could not move the ball. I think the quarterback had like 40 yards passing in the middle of the third quarter. It was bad. They can't do anything. And that program is clearly the worst team in the Big 12. And UNLV took advantage. I think they ended up winning 27-7. They were not favored, so it was an upset technically, but all of us knew that was coming, and I think it was obvious from the offseason that they were going to beat Houston. Now I wonder, can UNLV beat Kansas in like 2 weeks? And that's a game that I really want to watch because I think UNLV can beat Kansas. They got a good offensive system. They got good players both sides of the ball. The play calling is good. They got speed. The quarterbacks seem to meet, at least possibly exceed expectations. So yeah, it's a big deal for me for UNLV to get a win by that many points on the road against Houston.
Yeah, and the way they did it too is I mean, because I know we talked coming in to the season about how their offense was going to be real potent and everything, and their offense, I mean, they were able to run the ball extremely effectively. I think they had almost 200 yards rushing the ball as a team. Throwing the ball, Sluka only threw the ball, I think, 13 times for the game. So he's like 6 of 13 for 71 yards. So they didn't, I mean, he definitely did all that he was asked to do, but we still haven't really seen if the quarterback play can take the next step. And that was kind of the shocking part to me was the fact that they didn't throw the ball. I think Ricky White only had like 2 catches for 11 yards or something. So, I mean, when you're arguably your best player on offense is kind of having a quiet game, you can still put up 27 points. And the thing also that helped was the defense, which we kind of had some questions, and obviously they kind of were bend don't break last year. This week they kind of held Houston in check, and they forced 2 turnovers again. One of them was a pick six. Both turnovers resulted in points. So I think 10 of their points came kind of directly off of turnovers, as the one pick six and the other one turned into a field goal. So I think those are very promising things. And obviously the passing game, I mean, they're running the ball extremely effectively, and it's Houston, kind of like you said. I think Dane touched upon how bad they are. So it's almost, it could have been very much of a take what you can get, and run the ball, control the clock, get out of there with the win that you should win, which I think we all knew was coming, obviously. But so I'm not surprised by the win. I'm kind of surprised by how it came, with the defense kind of turnovers or creating turnovers and scoring points, and then the offense just running the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just the pure ass whipping, for lack of better terms. I think caught everyone off guard. And if UNLV plays even close to that going forward, I don't suspect Houston's going to be a bottom of the barrel team. So if UNLV can kind of keep their head going forward, it should be very interesting to see. I know I was probably a little lower on them than you guys in our preseason projection. So like I said, prove me wrong. We'll talk about you more. That's what you did in week 1. But another kind of surprising result was that ASU-Wyoming game. I thought the Wyoming quarterback kind of made it a little bit easier on ASU than necessary. But either of you guys got thoughts on this one?
Well, I'll touch on it real quickly. I mean, I'm kind of not shocked that Arizona State won. I'm shocked that it was not as close as I thought it was going to be. I mean, I figured Wyoming would give them a run, and I don't think that's necessarily an ASU thing. I think ASU played well, and I think Arizona State's better than a lot of people give them credit for. And I think they've improved quite a bit. Wyoming played really bad though last night. I mean, I was kind of surprised by how bad they were, because I thought they were going to be better. Like you said, Svoboda really struggled. He came out for a little while, and Caden Anderson, at least kind of towards the end of the game, had some better numbers, but still, I think 78 yards passing total, and they just couldn't get anything going on the running game. Harrison Whaley was out. He got hurt in a scrimmage earlier this fall. So obviously him not running the ball for Wyoming probably affected their offense quite a bit, because he's the workhorse. But yeah, Arizona State looked really good. I mean, they just looked solid, and quarterback play was good, which I think was really lacking last year. So if they can continue to get that kind of quarterback play against a Wyoming defense that, for all their offensive struggles, the defense for Wyoming still should be really, really good. And Arizona State just kind of chewed them up last night.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on Whaley being injured. I think that one probably slipped by me. And then obviously Peasley, being gone really hurt them. He was the star quarterback last year. So I think you're just looking at a Wyoming team. They're usually well coached, and also, I mean, this is the first game without Craig Bull. So a lot of different things there. I can't be singing any songs this week for Wyoming. Just a little bit too rough, but for ASU, definitely a big win. I think a lot of people outside the West may not realize that Wyoming is you can't call them a dominant program, because that'd be an over exaggeration, but it's a very reputable program. So it's a big win for ASU to start their year. And that's legit. Next game we're going to talk about is a game that I actually spent a little time watching. I believe it was Friday night, because we got like freaking games on every night this week. And that was Stanford-TCU. Really just disappointed. Yeah, I can't. I'm not going to say on sugarcoat. We've been doing this for too long, guys. I was just disappointed by everything Stanford did, with the exception of Iluk Aminar. He was a good wideout, but besides for that, they were just terrible. Ashton Daniels, it didn't really feel like he improved. It didn't feel like their offensive line improved. When TCU essentially had fumbles, penalties, I think Dane actually tweeted out this is the worst coach team ever. It felt like the worst coach team ever. But Stanford still couldn't win at home. And another thing too, I'm so sick of Stanford, show up for your team. It's embarrassing. It's actually embarrassing. I don't care how smart you are. Dude, show up for your team. That was a good game. You're playing a team from Texas at home on Friday night to start your season, and there was more noise from the damn cats in my house than the crowd. Step the F up. Like, maybe if you made some noise, your team would have won in a close game, and you'd be 1-0 with a nice victory over the Horned Frogs. Instead, you lost. So yeah, Stanford just all around. I'm disappointed in their football program. Don't sue me, Stanford. I know you're powerful people. So I know you could like shut me down in a day, like like buy out like my whole city probably. So my bad, Stanford. All love, but show up for your damn team.
And
So yeah,
and
that's my.
and get Cedric Irvin more touches. That guy's got to run the ball more than 5 times in a game.
Yeah, exactly. Just yeah. So Troy Taylor, hand the ball off more. Yeah, you heard it from Steve. So yeah, that if you want some actual game analysis, it really was that though. TCU shot themselves in the foot time and time again, whether it's a fumble, whether it's a penalty. And if it wasn't for that, the game would have been an absolute blowout. But bottom line, TCU got it done in the end. So the next kind of couple of games we're going to talk about here are the quick hitters. We've been at, so we got 3 games we selected. Knowing us, we'll probably throw in something random, but the first game was going to be Oklahoma State versus South Dakota State. So we're actually hopping outside the SuperWest. But Dane, I wanted to hear your take on this one.
Yeah, so Oklahoma State beat up South Dakota State pretty good. South Dakota State had won 29 straight games and 2 straight FCS national championships. So that's a pretty damn good team. And Oklahoma State beat them 40-20 or something like that. And yeah, Ollie Gordon looked good. I think Oklahoma State is probably the top of the Big 12. After the first week, I would say it's probably Utah and Oklahoma State. And so I'm interested to continue watching what the Cowboys do out there in Stillwater because I think that team is probably the top of the class of the Big 12. And so I was interested in watching that game against South Dakota State, and they handled business. The spread was like 9.5, or it jumped up to 11, and they completely crushed that. So I think Oklahoma State might be better than people think.
All right. So hopping again to the next one really quick. We got Steve. You got your kind of quick takeaway on UCLA versus Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii should have won that game. I mean, they were up 10-0 early. They at halftime. This is a game Hawaii should have left. UCLA had no business leaving the islands with that victory, but they did. And like you said, a win's a win is a win, and it's early in the year. But UCLA's got to get a lot better if they're gonna compete, especially in the Big Ten, and running the ball. And I guess it's kind of a two-sided thing. Is it good for Hawaii or bad for UCLA, or just somewhere right in the middle? But Hawaii or UCLA rather was only able to run for 71 yards against the Rainbow Warriors, and this is a Hawaii team that 2 years ago was like dead last in the nation against the run, and last year they were 108th against the run, giving up almost 200 yards a game. And for UCLA not to be able to run the ball against that defense is shocking to me. So UCLA's got a long way to go, and they got to get improved quite a bit. And I think Hawaii is an improved team over what we've seen in the past couple of years, but they're not there yet.
I picked UCLA because we all, I think most of the country did. But
I picked Hawaii to cover, but not win. So
that's fair. That's fair. But I think maybe Hawaii really remembered getting absolutely humiliated by Charbonnet and DTR a couple years ago, and wanted to put up a little bit better performance. And one game though we didn't somehow have in our docket, and I don't know how. Dane, I want to hear your take on Arizona because that was obviously the Cats took care of business in the end. But what was your take on that one?
Yeah, I think the defense has serious issues. I think the defensive line is not good enough. I think the linebacker core didn't have a big enough impact on the game. I think the secondary didn't play very well. It couldn't cover anybody, couldn't force drops. They got a couple picks, but most of those were tip balls. I think there's a lot left on the table that Arizona needs to improve on the defensive side of the ball. On offense, it's basically just throw the ball to McMillan, and the running backs were pretty good. I think the running backs had good games. They probably had four combined touchdowns. Both of them almost had 100 yards on the ground. So the offense is basically okay. It's not variable enough yet. I think another wide receiver needs to step up because McMillan is going to start getting double covered. And teams that have good coaches that can scheme up against McMillan will be able to shut him down. I don't think he's going to have 300-yard performances every single game. It was just ridiculous. Fafita would snap the ball and just throw it to McMillan, and he would run 70 yards down the field for a touchdown. So, the defense is the issue, and maybe it's week one and there's rust or whatever, but that's a bad sign. I'm pretty down on Arizona's prospects after seeing week one.
Playing devil's advocate, though, there's the human nature from New Mexico trying to do whatever they could to bounce back from that humiliating loss the week before to Montana State. They weren't going to roll over this weekend. If they did, they're literally one of the worst teams in the country. So, all said, I was able to watch a little bit of this game, and I hear what you're saying on defense, but I was bottom line, Arizona's offense, they showed out again and did enough to win comfortably. And that's I know a lot of people nationally probably weren't watching this game because it was so late. And then the last game we're going to talk about here is, of course, my WSU Cougars. And I just want to say thank goodness for the CW network. Didn't really realize how cool that was, but that's literally on every cable. So didn't really realize how cool that deal was. Talking about the Cougs, though, really briefly. They played Portland State, so I'm not going to waste your time. The one thing I do want to mention is I really like the transfer of Chris Hudson. I think him and Kyle Williams make up a better receiving duo than I realized. I thought that pretty much everyone transferred out with Cam Ward, and as long as John Mateer can throw some passes in these guys' general direction, they have two playmakers. Not quite the Mike Leach era, but two guys who could really put some pressure on teams, particularly in a heavily loaded Mountain West schedule. So just curious to see how that goes forward for the Cougs, and obviously happy to see a win for them and the other Pac-2 school in Oregon State. So, guys, we touched on a lot of games there. Shoot, I don't know how you guys want to end this. You guys want to do?
Well, I got one more just to. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Ashton Genty's performance yesterday. Boise State kind of the defense struggled a little bit. 267 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns. So, kind of record-setting performance for the Boise State Heisman hopeful, and he got his year off to a good start. Probably a little closer. I think it was 56-44 or something like that was that final score. So it was 56-45, I guess. So it was a shootout in South Georgia with the Panthers down there. But Boise State got the win, and again, a win's a win. It was a win, and Ashton Genty, huge numbers.
Yeah, and then I'll just finish up with one thing about Cal. They played UC Davis. They struggled with them in the first half, and in the second half, the defense got its stuff together, forced several turnovers, and was able to change the game. Justin Wilcox is still doing this quarterback rotation that makes zero sense to me, and Jaden Ott got hurt. So it was terrible first week if you're Cal. Hopefully Ott's good to go for Auburn. I don't think it's serious. He tweeted it's not season ending, but he's not. There's no way he's going to be 100% for this game coming up this weekend against Auburn. So Cal did not really meet my expectations, but let's see how it goes moving forward. Hopefully Ott gets back healthy soon.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching as always. We appreciate it. College football is back, and that's enough of me being nice. Like and subscribe, you bums. How about that? But no. We seriously appreciate the support, and it's nice being able to sit here and talk college football. Not just roster breakdown, real games. That is it for this week on SuperWest on Sundays. You guys can catch us most Sundays, maybe every Sunday during the college football year. We're covering all the best teams out here on the West Coast. And if you're like a fan of UNLV, Fresno State, we cover the bigger markets as well. But we give real love to the small market team. So just want to throw that out there. I'm excited for the games next week. Excited for USC LSU. And for Steve, for Dane, I'm Nick, and deuces.